Could it be that the life of Jesus was recorded outside the Bible by someone who didn't even believe in him? Over 2,000 years ago, a Jewish historian named Flavius Josephus, living in the very century Jesus walked the earth, wrote a passage that perfectly mirrors the miracles, the crucifixion, and the resurrection of Christ. He was a Pharisee, a soldier, and an advisor to the Roman general Vespasian. But he was not a follower of Jesus. And yet, in his own words, he captures the story in a way that has stunned historians for centuries. What did Josephus witness that compelled him to write this? And how could a non-Christian so accurately describe the events that would become the foundation of the Christian faith? The answer might change how you see history itself. Flavius Josephus was born in Jerusalem in AD 37, only a few years after the crucifixion of Jesus. He came from a prominent Jewish family with priestly roots and received a thorough education in the scriptures and the political intricacies of his time. As a young man, Josephus joined the Pharisees, a religious group often at odds with the teachings of Jesus, which gave him a deep understanding of the religious debates that shaped first-century Judea. In his early adulthood, Josephus became involved in the Jewish revolt against Rome, a rebellion that ultimately failed. He surrendered to the Roman forces and, rather than being executed, earned the trust of the Roman general Vespasian, who would later become emperor. Josephus then spent much of his life in Rome, writing extensive histories that would preserve the story of the Jewish people for generations. Despite his position in the Roman world and his Pharisee background, Josephus was meticulous and observant. He chronicled wars, political movements, and the customs of his people with careful attention to detail. It was in this unique position, both as an insider to Jewish society and as an observer under Roman authority, that Josephus recorded details of Jesus' life. What he wrote about Jesus, coming from someone with no allegiance to Christianity, would shock anyone who reads it today. Josephus authored two of the most important historical works of the first century, the Jewish War and Antiquities of the Jews. The Jewish War recounts the Jewish revolt against Rome, detailing battles, politics, and the destruction of Jerusalem and the Temple in AD 70. Antiquities of the Jews, written later in Rome, traces Jewish history from creation to Josephus's own lifetime, blending cultural, religious, and political narratives. It is within Antiquities, specifically Book 18, that we find a passage that has captivated scholars and believers alike, the Testimonium Flavianum, a non-biblical reference to Jesus Christ. Here, Josephus, a historian with no allegiance to Christianity, provides a remarkable description of Jesus' life, teachings, miracles, crucifixion, and the early Christian movement. The significance is striking. A non-Christian eyewitness observer, deeply familiar with Jewish society, recounts events that mirror the gospel narratives. How could a man so removed from the faith capture the essence of Jesus' life so precisely? The truth he recorded may be even more astonishing than it first appears. Buried within Antiquities of the Jews, Book 18, is a short but extraordinary passage, the Testimonium Flavianum, a non-biblical reference to Jesus Christ. Here, Josephus, a historian with no allegiance to Christianity, provides a remarkable description of Jesus' life, teachings, miracles, crucifixion, and the early Christian movement. The significance is striking. A non-Christian eyewitness observer, deeply familiar with Jewish society, recounts events that mirror the gospel narratives. How could a man so removed from the faith capture the essence of Jesus' life so precisely? The truth he recorded may be even more astonishing than it first appears. In the Testimonium Flavianum, Josephus describes Jesus with words that are astonishingly familiar to anyone who has read the Gospels. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man,
if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at first did not forsake him. For he appeared alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these things about him, and 10,000 other wonderful things. The tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct to this day. Even without knowing the Bible, Josephus's words align almost perfectly with the gospel narrative. Miracles, teachings, crucifixion, resurrection, and the growth of Jesus' followers. What makes this remarkable is that Josephus had no motive to promote Jesus. As a Pharisee and historian under Roman patronage, he would have been expected to remain neutral or even dismissive. This account challenges skeptics. A non-Christian historian, documenting Jesus' life, validates events that Christians consider sacred. Could a man removed from the faith so accurately recount what would become the foundation of Christianity?
What makes Josephus's testimony so powerful is his position as a non-Christian observer. He was a Pharisee by upbringing, a Roman advisor, and a historian whose duty was to record facts, not to promote religious beliefs. Yet he mentions Jesus with respect, describing his wisdom, miracles, crucifixion, and the continued devotion of his followers. Scholars debate whether parts of the text were later adjusted by Christian scribes, but the consensus is clear. Josephus wrote about Jesus in some form. This alone is extraordinary. Here is independent historical evidence from the 1st century that confirms Jesus lived, performed remarkable works, was crucified under Pilate, and whose followers claimed his resurrection. Josephus's credibility comes not only from his proximity to the events, but also from his meticulous attention to detail. He chronicled wars, politics, and society with care, providing context that aligns with other historical sources. If a historian who had no vested interest in Christianity acknowledged these events, it elevates the historical reliability of the gospel narrative. The implication is profound. History itself confirms that Jesus was not a legend or myth. And yet there is an even deeper connection between Josephus's words and ancient prophecies that, when revealed, leave a lasting impact on how we view the life and purpose of Christ. To fully grasp Josephus's account, we must step into 1st century Judea. The land was under Roman control, a period marked by tension, oppression, and unrest. Jewish society was deeply divided. Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and Zealots each held different beliefs about how to live under Roman rule and uphold God's law. Into this politically charged and spiritually restless environment came Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus preached about the kingdom of God, healed the sick, and forgave sins. His teachings challenged religious leaders, exposed hypocrisy, and resonated with the common people. His growing popularity alarmed the Jewish elite, eventually leading to his crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. Josephus, with his insider perspective on Jewish politics and Roman authority, could not have ignored a figure whose actions stirred such widespread attention. Miracles, confrontations, and the masses drawn to Jesus would have been impossible to miss in a small, politically charged land. But consider this. A historian who often criticized Jewish movements still wrote about Jesus with accuracy and respect. How could an outsider, observing from a distance, capture the spiritual and social upheaval caused by this one man? And if the world saw him in this way, what other evidence exists that supports the gospel story?
evidence hidden in plain sight. Josephus is not the only historian to mention Jesus. Roman historians such as Tacitus, Suetonius, and Pliny the Younger also provide accounts that confirm key aspects of his life and the early Christian movement. Tacitus, for instance, wrote about Christus, who suffered under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Emperor Tiberius. Pliny documented the rapid spread of Christians and their worship of Christ as a divine figure. These independent sources, coming from non-Christian observers, align with the gospel narrative. Together with Josephus, they create a consistent historical picture. Jesus lived, taught, performed extraordinary works, was crucified, and his followers proclaimed his resurrection. The convergence of multiple witnesses, Jewish and Roman, religious and secular, makes it nearly impossible to dismiss Jesus as a myth. And yet, even with this historical confirmation, the most astonishing aspect of Jesus' story remains the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. Could it be that history itself was quietly pointing toward a truth that had been foretold long before his birth? Josephus's account does more than confirm historical events. It also echoes ancient prophecies about the Messiah. The prophet Isaiah wrote, "But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed." Similarly, Psalm 16:10 declares, "For you will not leave my soul in Sheol, nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption." It is remarkable that a non-Christian historian could summarize the life and impact of Jesus in a way that aligns with these prophecies. The miracles, the crucifixion, and the resurrection, all recorded independently by Josephus, mirror what God had foretold centuries earlier. For believers, this is more than historical validation. It is a profound reminder that God's plan unfolded exactly as promised. Even skeptics cannot easily ignore these alignments. Josephus was not writing to evangelize. He was documenting what he observed. Yet his words reinforce the reality of Jesus' mission, the divine timing of his works, and the enduring power of his message. And here lies the tension. If history and prophecy converge so clearly in Jesus, what does this mean for those who have yet to see the evidence? Could there be even more confirmations hidden in plain sight? Ancient records, overlooked details, or testimonies that quietly corroborate the gospel story? The answers are waiting, and what comes next may astonish even the most skeptical reader.
Josephus's testimony is more than a historical footnote. It is a bridge between sacred scripture and secular history. A man who had no allegiance to Christianity, a Pharisee and Roman advisor, described Jesus with astonishing accuracy. His wisdom, his miracles, his crucifixion under Pontius Pilate, and the resurrection proclaimed by his followers. For nearly 2,000 years, Josephus's words have quietly affirmed the reality of Christ's life and mission, providing a compelling external witness to the Gospels. When we place Josephus alongside other historians like Tacitus and Pliny the Younger, and when we see the alignment with prophecies from Isaiah and the Psalms, a clear picture emerges. Jesus was not a legend fabricated by later generations. He was a living, historical figure whose life left an indelible mark on history. His story was known, discussed, and recorded by those who had no reason to embellish it. Yet the story does not end there. The Testimonium Flavianum, combined with other historical and prophetic evidence, challenges us to look deeper. How many more forgotten texts, buried accounts, or overlooked historical fragments might reveal truths about Jesus that even today remain hidden? What other confirmations of his life and works lie waiting in the dusty scrolls of ancient libraries or in the ruins of first-century Judea? The truth is that history and faith are intertwined in ways that few truly grasp. Josephus may have written for the annals of the Jews, but his words continue to speak to us centuries later. And if a non-Christian historian could capture the essence of Jesus so clearly, how much more does the witness of those who walked with him illuminate the extraordinary reality of his life? The story of Jesus is far from complete, and the next revelation from history could change everything we think we know. Somewhere, in the pages yet unread or the ruins yet uncovered, lies a secret that may rewrite what we believe about the man who changed the world.